Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, and you guys are going to love what I'm going to talk about today. And before we start, a warm welcome to all the new subscribers and for all of you who have been here since the start. I love you all, and you guys have been amazing. Your comments, you guys have been so beautiful, so kind. You have been, we're building such a beautiful community, and I'm very, very happy about it. So we're going to delve right into topic. So before that, you're probably thinking why I would even, come up with this, right? Like, why? But the reality is, there will come a point in your journey when you would start thinking your divine masculine is a loser. But remember, why though? Because as the divine feminine, this is our soul breaking out of the illusion. So remember, this is not judgment, this is awakening. So there will come a stage. We have all been there before, especially in the monadic twin flame journey as the divine feminine, when the grief turns into disgust, which I've done a video about, the longing turns into cringe, and the pedestalization, putting our divine masculine up on the pedestal, starts to break. And it just doesn't break, it just doesn't collapse. We kick it over and we say, I can't believe I was actually enchanted. He's actually a freaking loser. Can't use the word again, I'll be flagged for. So as I was saying, there will come a point when you think of him as a freaking loser, and it is raw, it is beautiful, it is untainted, and it's true. And this is not spiritual failure. Let me be very, very clear here. This is not spiritual failure. This is actually field level correction. And our ego and our ego's ideal of our divine masculine is totally dying, and our nervous system can finally stop worshipping a man who never showed up as God. In fact, he has been an a-hole in so many ways, right? But again, it's all part of divine design. Divine intelligence does all of that, especially in a monadic twin flame journey. All of this happens, and that's why this is not talked about. And a lot of clients have been saying there's not much stuff about monadic twin flames, and that's why I'm also like inspired again, you know. That's why. So that's why I really want to break it down. What loser really means to the nervous system. When, as the divine feminine, we start seeing our divine masculine as a loser, we are actually experiencing the following. And that is an emotional contrast between what we saw him as versus who he's actually choosing to be. And this is a very clear distinction. For example, he's lashing out at you because he had a bad day or he was fired, example, right? And somehow you are in his space and he lashes out to you. But you still put him up on a pedestal and you are like, what did I do? Why? Why? But instead, there'll come a point where you are like, he has no right to lash out on me. So what? I'm his divine feminine. So what if I'm his other half? This is when the illusion starts to break and you start to see the real him, who he's choosing to be. Because even though he's having a bad day, even though he's suffering and struggling, even though he's on low energy space, which is very, very valid, but he doesn't have to embarrass his divine feminine who comes from that place of, example, I hadn't seen you in such a long time, and I just want to see, feel how you're doing. But instead, if a divine masculine is choosing to be a loser because he's choosing this, all right, The running away, he's choosing to run away. There will come a point where you're not even chasing, but he's choosing to run away. Why? So that's what today's discourse is about. The emotional contrast between what you see in him versus what he's actually showing you. And another thing is the recoil, that deep psychic recoil from the ways he refuses to grow through responsibility or even communication. For example, he will be really nice to all the people who actually cheating him, using him, misusing him, trying to create charades, posing as hey, example. There will be people around him who are actually not looking out for his good interests, and he will be worshiping them. So then you might be wondering, like, why? Because, as divine feminines, often our class senses are pretty active. So you are like looking at him and thinking, why is he doing this? He's going to be cheated on. They're going to rob him into a business, or they're going to pull him into an opportunity to drown him. But why would he choose to hang out with this group of people? Or why is he hanging out with a group of friends who are good for nothing? Or why is he wasting his time chasing butterflies? Literally, quite literally. So this goes to category 1 and this goes to category 2 as well. Why does he keep choosing the karmic? Or why does he keep choosing a karmic project? Or why does he keep looping himself behind the glamour of society? Why does he have to keep going to social events? Why does he have to keep clubbing? Why does he have to keep, settling for people whom he thinks that they look good on book? Why must he be the playboy? Why must he be the karmic detourer? Why must he be the silent monk? Well, all these whys will start to turn into, well, this is what he actually chooses to be. He chooses to, let's be very blunt here, he chooses to hurt you, whether he likes it or not. He chooses to push you away because in his mind, you are this obsessed, crazy, psychotic person who would do anything for him, versus these glamorous people who appear to be picture perfect on the outside, whom he thinks have the best interest in his art, but they're only there to suck his energies off. Because as divine masculines, obviously divine masculines hold a lot of the third energy, the combined energies that we share, and he gives it away, for example, by sipping tequilas at a bar, to attending high-level tech conferences where, he's trying to look for investors, when it's like he's running away from the third energy, when the third energy has all of what he wants. And I'm not even talking about us, the divine feminine. I'm talking about that sacred intelligence that brings us both together, and that's what you call the dyad in the Force, right, in the Star Wars movie. And then you ask yourself, like, why? So the more you ask yourself why, that's when you start realizing he's a freaking loser. He is like choosing to suppress his superpower that he shares with you to choose what looks very glamorous in the 3D world. But you know what? He's going to keep looping and looping and looping and looping. He may wear the most beautiful tailored suits, probably, tailored in Asia. What I meant to say is that he may do a lot of things, because the thing is, it will always tend to echo between what we are doing as the divine feminine together with what he's trying to do. So, for example, the divine feminine is a Jasmine Bureau movie. She's a ballet dancer, and Matt Damon is a politician, right? But in that movie, he's pretty awakened, the way. But a lot of divine masculine, if you were to use this example, he would be like running for elections and he will keep losing. And the divine feminine will go on to become the most famous ballerina in the world, and he will keep losing. And then he will keep thinking, why am I such a failure? He will be shaking hands with the most prominent people. He will be doing everything that's needed for the party. But yet, because he's not tapping on to Shakti, the third energy, and however you want to call it, he's not tapping onto sacred intelligence, the field he shares with his divine feminine. So this is what's actually going on. And that's why he's a loser in a 3D way. But again, there's no judgment for him being like that. Sometimes he has to go through it. He needs to be cheated. He needs to be betrayed by these 3D people, NPCs, karmics, whoever, before he understands where his divine feminine is coming from. She's not chasing him. Okay, fine, she has no backbone for always being available. She's always, trying to show you what unconditional love is. But that doesn't make her someone to run away from. It's like, oh my goodness, only, it's a very modern day way of thinking that the man must chase the women for it to be a successful relationship. But actually, if you really tap onto ancient wisdom, and psychically, I'm telling you guys, the woman is the one who recognizes her mate, who remembers her mate. That's why she comes from the egg and he comes from the sperm. So there are millions of sperms, but why is it that only one gets to create a baby? So same thing. The divine feminine is always aware, but they had to reverse the whole thing. And that's why when the twin flame journey comes up, people are like, why are you chasing? Why is the DM the runner? Why is the divine feminine the chaser? This is how it is, right? So, as I was saying, the divine masculine can go on chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing everything in the external world. Because so you see, there's a mirroring going on, right? The divine feminine is chasing him and he's chasing the material world. But once the divine feminine starts choosing herself, he will start choosing himself too. So that's why I say the answers are always within. So next time, instead of seeing yourself as the chaser, see yourself as the person who is able to see things on a macro perspective. For example, he chooses to, be mean to you, accept it. That's what he has chosen in that moment. If he has blocked you, that's what he has chosen in the moment. Don't go back to, I have done so much stuff for him. Oh, lifetimes after lifetimes, I've been in the altar praying for his return. Or, lifetimes after lifetimes, I've waited. Lifetime. The past doesn't matter. Only the now matters. And if he has chosen that, that's what the higher selves are orchestrated. So which goes, oh boy, I dropped. Never mind, I'll look at it later. Oh yeah, I thought I dropped my Apple Watch, but it's actually here. Anyway, so as I was saying, when we start to see our divine masculine as a loser, we start to experience this. A deep psychic recoil from the ways he refused to grow, take responsibility, or communicate responsibly. Recognition of unlived masculine energy. You gave him every opportunity to step into integrity, and he chooses to ghost, hide, and pretend like you are nothing. So, even though calling him a loser isn't always fair, but it's psychically very, very honest. It's our nervous system saying, I'm done rewriting his immaturity as mystery. So, this goes back to the exploration of why the pedestalization crashes down to a state of disdain, not detachment. So, most monadic twin flame teachings will always encourage detach with love. In fact, let me correct myself here. Most twin flame teachings would encourage detach with love, but sometimes the energy doesn't detach gently. Sometimes it snaps. And our divine masculine goes from sacred masculine warrior, which equates to avoidant manchild. Let me say it a few times. Avoidant manchild who can't even reply to a message, who can't even respect a female, who can't even be honest. And the reason, as the divine feminine, we start thinking of him as a loser is because our soul knows his potential. We know he's so capable. Why does he keep making the wrong decisions? But again, it's not from our place to judge. He may be searching for every investor in town. He may be trying to up his game. He may be going for a 100-day man cam, to try to get into the energies. But in a monadic twin flame, none of that is going to work. If he keeps dismissing his divine feminine, and I'm saying it, I'm truly, truly not saying it from the perspective of ego, but I'm saying it from the perspective of not honoring the third energy, everything is going to be taken away from him. And what is frustrating to us is that we have held him as divine, but he chooses, and his choices have remained so small, so pathetic, so self-serving, and so hidden. And this is infuriating to us as the divine feminine. Because we didn't fall in love with his immaturity. We fell in love with his blueprint because as divine feminines, we can see beyond. And now, you see how far he's running from it. So that's why loser as a soul level language is actually inverted potential. So let's be very, very real. In the 3D, a loser is someone who lacks power, direction, and self-respect. In twin flame terms, in monadic twin flame terms, a loser is someone who has divine destiny codes and says no thanks because ego feels safer. So when you start thinking he's pathetic, gross, or awful, it's often because you're finally seeing the contrast between soul memory and him being a coward. And you're finally letting yourself be angry for holding so much love for someone who disappeared. And you're finally reclaiming your worth outside the storyline of, is he even the chosen one? So this is not your ego inflating. It is your intuition. Oh my goodness. Your intuition unchaining. So you may ask me this question. So is this just shadow projection? Sometimes, as the divine feminine, we are projecting our pain and disappointment because he has rejected us. Fine, we're way past the stage. Maybe because he chose someone else, category 1. Maybe you realize he never saw you clearly. He sees you as someone scary. That's why he runs away, right? But instead of feeling the grief, you flip into What a loser. He will never find someone like me again. So I'm not saying it from ego. Again, I'm saying it from realization. So, and if this is the case, the anger is very, very real. But the judgment might still be entangled with the desire to be seen, chosen, and validated. And that is okay. Remember, that is okay. But eventually, you have to ask this. Do I think he's a loser, or do I just finally see that I was overestimating him to protect my illusion of love? Because this is when a true psychic separation begins. So let's look at the liberation beneath the loathing, beneath the hatred, beneath the sacred loathing. So here's the truth. As the divine feminine, we must be allowed to feel disdain in order to exit this trance. Why? Because disdain equates to your soul saying, he's not my source. Disdain equates to your psychic system returning to its sovereignty, and disdain equates to detox from a spell of protection. And the moment you say, it's not who I thought he was, and I wouldn't even want him at this level, is the moment you break the trauma loop. Not because he's evil, not because he's embarrassing you in public places, or he's embarrassing you in private places, or he's embarrassing you because he's embarrassed at himself, and not because you're better. That's why the divine masculine is actually more awakened, because he's able to orchestrate all of this for you to realize your worth. But because you finally know your value and he hasn't met it. See, that is the biggest waking up code, see? Because you finally know your value and he doesn't meet it. So it's kind of a test. Are you still willing to stoop low for a loser? And remember, it's not couldn't, it's you didn't. So that is the reason why. I want you guys to reflect on a few things before I close this discourse, because I got to get back to work. What are you really calling loser? His behavior or his being? Secondly, can you honor your own anger without needing to spiritually sanitize it? And another one is, what would change in your life if you stopped seeing him as a mystery and just letting him be a man who chooses not to rise? So let him be a loser. Let him sip, tequilas in a bar, and let him go clubbing because he's a man child, right? Let him be a loser in this version of the timeline. Because the moment you truly let him go, you might actually call in the version of him who's ready. Or maybe not. But either way, you stop losing yourself. All right? So, you don't want to be angry anymore, but you don't want to lie to yourself either. If he has walked away from his own soul, then maybe it's speaking volumes, because that's what he chooses, right? Because if he's walking away from his own soul, it's speaking volumes. But that is the choice he makes. That is the sovereignty he chooses. And I'll just end this discourse. If you were in his shoes, what would you do? If you were in his shoes, would you do this to him? So with that, I know this is quite intense, but I know you guys will enjoy this discourse because we're going really, really raw. Yeah. So I thank you all for watching this discourse, and let me know in the comments, are you guys experiencing this? In what ways you're experiencing this? And say it proudly without guilt that your DM is the loser because he chooses to be one. All right. I'll see you all again with another sacred discourse. Till then, this is the game changer, because the moment you start realizing what a loser he is, that's the moment you start to truly awaken. All right, with that, see you all again with another video. And again, if you guys want to work one-on-one with me, you guys can book a psychic session, psychic guidance session from my website with the link provided. All right, looking forward to seeing you all again in another video, and keep the comments rolling in, guys, and take care. And blessings to you all always. And there's an 8-8 portal coming up. So if you guys want the 8-8 portal healing and activations, do check that out too. All right, with that, see you all again. Be in a state of being. Be in a state of embodiment. And you'll realize that you being yourself is the most authentic state you can ever be. And authenticity is what's going to draw you into the highest vibrations. With that, love you all and take care.